It's a delight also to welcome Simon to his own church. Revd Dr Simon Woodman, as you know, is the minister here at Bloomsbury Central Baptist Church and Baptist Chaplain of King's College London. Previously he lectured at Cardiff University and was a tutor and acting principal at the South Wales Baptist College. Simon is not afraid to mix politics with theology and to push boundaries. He champions radical values and inclusivity while collaborating and engaging widely to bring about transformation. Please welcome Simon.
Thank you for the welcome. It's good to be here today. So the title for this section is How Can Civil Society Groups Play a Part in Changing History? And I'm very conscious as I'm sat here that there are people who are far more integrated and engaged with the issues relating to Palestine than I have been. So I'm really going to kind of reflect from my own experience of this within the Christian communities that I'm involved with in the UK predominantly. This is building on, I think, 4 almost identical conversations I had at lunchtime as people came up to me and said something analogous to, isn't it great to be in a church that's prepared to open its doors and host an event like this? I'm really struggling to find another church that will do that in my area. And I'm just reflecting on that. Can I just do a little straw poll? How many people who are here today are aligned in some way with the Christian community or Christian congregations? Just to give me a sense of it. Okay, maybe half. That's really interesting. Thank you. So I'm talking to everybody, but my experiences may resonate particularly with those of you who share the Christian tradition with me. I've had the privilege of visiting Palestine 3 times. The first time I went was in 1993, and that was an academic study visit. And then I didn't go back again until 2018, but I guess it was sort of on my radar, because when I visited somewhere I tend to read the news about that place. You know, once you've been somewhere you care about it. And I was going to a festival called Greenbelt, and they were doing some publicity around some of the stuff that was going on, and so I'd been sort of paying attention. And then some years after I came to be minister here, we went on a church visit, which Jean facilitated and led, and that was in 2018, and we repeated the exercise 2 years ago with a slightly different group in 2022, and including my mum, which was just amazing to take my mum on that trip. Those trips were life-changing for me, particularly, I think, the more recent 2, opening my eyes to the harsh realities faced by Palestinians living under occupation. On our more recent trip, one of the members of the group is a water engineer. He works for one of the water companies, not Thames Water, but one of the UK water companies. And he was explaining some of the stuff around the inequalities of water supply. That really resonated with some of the stuff we were seeing in that video just now. Whilst we were out there, we heard first-hand stories of house demolitions. We saw with our own eyes the expansion of illegal settlements and the ongoing restrictions on movement and daily life. And the suffering we saw was undeniable, and it has compelled us, I think, to speak out and to act. And decisions arising from those visits have led directly to us being in this space today. Yet my experience is that many Christian congregations remain silent. I was at a meeting just this week, organised by ICAHD, where Christian leaders were sharing their experiences of being silenced and ostracised for speaking out about Palestine, and of the difficulty of motivating people in their churches to take action. For some, it's a silence rooted in fear, a fear of saying the wrong thing or of being misunderstood. For others, it's tied to long-standing theological beliefs like Christian Zionism, which often leads to uncritical support of Israel. But I believe Christians should not remain silent in the face of injustice. I quoted Martin Luther King earlier, "Injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere." And the thing about Dr. King's visit to this church in 1961 is that he'd actually come to London to speak at an anti-apartheid rally. So here he was at the height of the civil rights movement, fighting for the rights of black people in America, in the United States, and he came to the UK to participate in an anti-apartheid rally. because he knew that injustice anywhere was injustice everywhere, and that the fight for black rights in the United States meant that he also had to stand against the racism of apartheid South Africa. It was on this visit that he came to this church to encourage a predominantly white congregation to embrace the suffering of their fellow humans on the other side of the world. And so, inspired by him, I do continue to believe that there is a path forward for Christian communities in the UK to engage more fully and more courageously in the struggle for Palestinian rights, and for a better future for both Palestine and Israel. So I want to frame this as a journey, and I'm a Baptist minister, so do forgive me, but these are 3 words beginning with the letter A. I want to suggest that there is a journey from allyship to advocacy to activism. Allyship to advocacy to activism. And I do believe this is a journey that anyone can make, no matter where your starting point is. In fact, it's a journey that all civil society groups must consider if we're to contribute meaningfully to changing history. For Christians, I think this journey can be inspired by a passage from the book of James. I'm not going to preach a sermon, but I do want to read a couple of verses from the Christian Bible, if that's okay. This is a passage that challenges people to move beyond passive belief into active participation. The book of James, possibly written by the brother of Jesus, says, "What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose a brother or sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, keep warm and be well fed,' but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is that? In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead." So this passage, I think, reminds us that faith without actions is empty. And in the face of the suffering we've seen in Gaza, the West Bank and East Jerusalem, I believe we can no longer simply say, "Go in peace." We must move beyond words into meaningful action. And I think on our church visits to Palestine, we moved from allyship, a kind of general sense of support for the Palestinian cause. I attended a few seminars at Greenbelt and thought, gosh, isn't that terrible? But actually going there moved me from that sort of sense of allyship into more of a spirit of advocacy when we returned home. We began speaking more openly, organising talks within our church community, writing to our political representatives. It took me quite a long time, but eventually I have now had face-to-face conversations with my local Labour MP about this. But advocacy, important though it is still not enough, and it is in activism that we begin to create real change. So civil society groups like ICAHD, churches and other communities have a crucial role to play in helping people move, particularly from advocacy to action. Whether it's through attending the marches here in London, participating in acts of non-violent resistance, or putting pressure on governments and institutions that uphold the occupation, activism turns moral conviction into concrete efforts for justice. As my friend Munther Isaac, the minister of the Lutheran Christmas Church in Bethlehem, has so powerfully said, silence in the face of injustice is complicity. So my challenge to my fellow Christians is that we must contest the default theological positions that keep us silent, just as many Jewish activists have to challenge the assumptions of their own communities. Christian Zionism, the belief that the return of Jewish people to the land of Israel will trigger the second coming of Jesus, is, I think, utilitarian and instrumentalist in its attitudes towards Judaism, and I do not believe it has the genuine flourishing of Jewish people as its end goal. And I would want to call out Christian Zionism as anti-Semitic. We need to move beyond fear, beyond hesitation, and embrace the difficult but necessary work, therefore, of activism. And together as diverse groups committed to justice, we can begin to change the course of history. This isn't just about supporting Palestinians from afar, it's about standing with them as partners in the struggle for human dignity and freedom. It's about doing what we're doing here today. It's about recognising that the occupation, the illegal settlements, and the war in Gaza are moral crises that demand a response from us all. In our visits to Palestine, we saw the courage and resilience of the people living under occupation, but we also saw the erosion of hope and the shadow of despair. And during our visits, one of the most powerful experiences was meeting with Daoud Nasser and his family at the Tent of Nations farm just outside Bethlehem. This family's steadfastness in the face of occupation has left a lasting impression on us all. At the entrance to the farm, some of you have been there, I saw some smiles and nods. There's the stone that bears the words of their family's slogan, "We refuse to be enemies." And this simple yet profound declaration, inspired by their Christian faith, speaks to their commitment to non-violence, their refusal to give in to hatred despite the constant threat of land confiscation and aggression. Daoud has preached here at Bloomsbury, and he came with his family in May 2023. And we went for lunch at the Lebanese over the road, where I just got a falafel wrap from for my lunch, and his wife told me that their falafel was acceptable, but not as good as hers. I think that's a good review. Their farm, the Tent of Nations, stands as a beacon of hope, a place where reconciliation and peace are actively lived out, even in the most challenging of circumstances. And their witness reminds us that the struggle for justice can be waged with dignity and love and the refusal to dehumanize the other. A powerful lesson for us as we seek to challenge injustice without becoming hardened by it. But their cries for justice cannot be ignored, and we have a moral responsibility, I think, to amplify their voices and to push for an end to the violence and oppression that they face. And organisations like Christian Aid and the newly emergent Christians for Palestine are playing a crucial role in bringing together diverse Christian groups to engage in meaningful dialogue about justice in Palestine. They facilitate conversations across denominational lines, helping break down the theological and political barriers that have often kept Christians divided on this issue. By fostering understanding and collaboration, such groups are beginning the vital task of organising the disparate voices within the Christian tradition, encouraging churches and faith leaders and congregations to at last start working together for justice for Palestine. Through these initiatives, Christians who may once have felt isolated in their allyship are finding solidarity and support that enables them to move to advocacy and activism. And this collective effort is essential if we're to turn a moral conviction into coordinated action, amplifying the call for peace, human rights, and the end to occupation in ways that are rooted in faith that reach across religious and cultural boundaries. It's not only, however, within the Christian tradition that I think we must seek unity, but also, as Christians, we must do so within a broader multi-faith space. The struggle for justice in Palestine is one that transcends religious boundaries, and our work is strengthened when we stand in solidarity with people of other faiths. So organisations like Na'amod, a Jewish group dedicated to ending the occupation, or Health Workers for Palestine, which brings together medical professionals across faiths to support Palestinian healthcare, are powerful examples of how Jewish, Muslim and Christian voices can come together for common cause. And just last night, in this very space where we are now, we held a vigil attended by nearly 300 people that reflected this interfaith solidarity. We were honoured here to have last night the Palestinian ambassador Hussam Zomlot, the actress Juliet Stevenson, the Palestinian pastor Muntha Isaac joining us down the line. We had Sui Ang from Medical Aid for Palestine, and Linda, she specifically said hi. She knows everyone. She's like you, isn't she? She knows absolutely everyone. We had representatives from Na'amod and other Jewish and Muslim advocates to justice, and we finished with the faith representatives stood on this platform, giving a show of unity and offering blessings from our different faith traditions. It was a moving reminder that the pursuit of peace and human dignity requires all of us, regardless of our faith tradition, to work together, to listen to one another, and to stand against oppression. This interfaith collaboration enriches our work, reminding us that justice is a shared human calling, and that our collective efforts can help turn the tide. So in closing, this journey from allyship to advocacy to activism is one I think that takes courage and commitment, and a willingness to be challenged in our own comfort zones and our own communities. But if we want to be part of changing history, if we want to be on the side of justice, we do have to take that journey. So I do think it's time for Christians to speak and to act and to stand together in the fight for justice for Palestine. Thank you.
Simon, thank you so much. Thank you for your sharing your journey of faith, and I love simple outlines. Allyship, advocacy, activism, that's where we're headed. So thank you for broadening our vision of what is possible. What is possible. So often we allow ourselves to limit our imagination of where we can be and where we're headed. So thank you, Simon, for that most encouraging presentation.